The SEC has disrespected Ole Miss yet again.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm Stephen Willis, a former staff member at Ole Miss and a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports. Today on the show, we talk about Ole Miss getting disrespected by the SEC yet again in regards to kickoff windows. And this is for one of the more expected frontrunners in the conference. Seriously, the Georgia Bulldogs game is the only one that has a chance to be a night game this SEC season, and it's not guaranteed. So get ready for some morning football, Ole Miss fans. We also take a bit to talk about Tre Harris giving back to his community and racing up the all-time charts. Also, Chris Beard has built the 2024-2025 Ole Miss basketball team and the roster is complete. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the everydayers who make the show what it is. July 2nd at 7 o'clock Central Time, you can join us at Walk-Ons in Ridgeland, Mississippi for a meet and greet. This is going to be a lot of fun, and it's a way the Loon community can meet up and grow together. So we'll see you there. Also, there's still time to join the Grove Collective and help the Ole Miss football program be elite. Go to thegrovecollective.com and join today. Today's episode is brought to you by the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, so interesting thing, all right? So I'm going to rant today. So this is just going to be one of those days because there is no excuse for what the SEC just did to the Ole Miss Rebels. Ole Miss is one of the predicted popular teams in all of the conference to win the conference, to play for a national championship, to make the playoff. So why would you hide them out of the major viewing windows that are out there? Seriously, I get the fact that the 11 a.m. kickoff is important. I get the fact that the 2:30 kickoff is important. But you know what it is? It should be balanced. There's balance that should be there. And the Ole Miss South Carolina road game should not be a flex opportunity whenever you look at what Ole Miss's schedule. Ole Miss and Oklahoma should be a night game, period. Let's look at Ole Miss's schedule right now of what's going on. This is the Ole Miss 2024 football schedule along with the TV windows for them currently, all right? And obviously, you can tell by my tone of voice, I'm a little bit aggravated by all of this. It starts off on August 31st against Furman at 7 o'clock. That's an SEC Network Plus game, okay? That is not a major TV game. That is something to where you can put it wherever you want. So that one, good for them for doing that because it's going to be hot as all get out. September 2nd, Middle Tennessee in the hottest part of the day. Playing that at 3:15 Central Time, it's going to be hot. September 14th at Wake Forest, a night game on the CW. So thank you, CW, for doing us a solid. And then September 21st, they return home to play Georgia Southern at about 6:45. That looks like it's going to be an SEC Network type game, but that is potentially the last night game at Ole Miss for 2024. This most anticipated of football seasons. You have a chance to blow this out. All of the season tickets are sold out. All of the atmosphere has a chance to be on point. No night games. Starts off September 28th against Kentucky at noon on either ABC or ESPN. There's a chance that maybe that it's on ABC. I do not know. Then there's the weird flex game at South Carolina. They can get a flex night game on their schedule, but we can't do anything unless we're playing the best college football program in the last 3 years. Apparently, that's the only way that Ole Miss can play in prime time. There's a game at LSU at night. It just says night. It's not even a flex game. It just says night because every freaking game at LSU is at night. It is completely not balanced, not even a little bit. to where fan bases get taken care of and every program gets taken care of. They're not even pretending to do that when it comes to this. Then there's a game 2 weeks later. They play Oklahoma at noon. That game was born to be a primetime game. The Grove, Oklahoma, coming to Oxford. No, it's not there. They're not going to do that. They cost the LSU game on Halloween night for this, right? At Arkansas, early game. That's probably the only good thing about these TV windows is Arkansas in the early window. You want your road games to be at 11. You want your home games to be at 9. That's the way this works. And getting Arkansas at 11 a.m., that is potentially a good thing, especially with that house of horrors that is Reynolds Razorback stadiums for Ole Miss. So Ole Miss trying to get to Georgia, which all of this is going to be get to Georgia territory. The Georgia game is next up. It is listed as a flex game. And what that means is it either can be in the afternoon window or it can be in the night window. The afternoon window is like 2:30 to 3:30. The night window is from like 5 to 7 Central Time. So that's what that means. So it's been flexed. So if Ole Miss is really good and Georgia's really good, there's a chance that this game can be the ABC at night primetime game like we all think that it can happen, okay? This is the one game on the schedule to where Ole Miss, if they do what they're supposed to do, the crescendo of getting to Georgia at a certain level will be there. After that, you go down to Florida at noon, which, again, road games at noon, home games in prime time, it should be your goal. And then Mississippi State on Friday at 2:30. I mean, I have no problem there. I have no problem with the last 2 road games. I have no problem with the Georgia game. It's just the first 8 games on this schedule make no sense. It seems like Kentucky or Oklahoma could be night. Like the Oklahoma game absolutely could be night. Oklahoma deserves it. You get the Grove, the plenty of time to settle into that. Now Oklahoma's going to come to Oxford and they're going to walk out and say the Grove's not that big of a deal. Well, yeah, it's because you were walking through the Groves at 8:30 in the morning. It is a honestly disrespectful path the Southeastern Conference took. You give all the night games to LSU, all of them, and you took them all away from Ole Miss. I haven't dug into a lot of the other games. Maybe there's another school that got screwed as well. Maybe that's the case. I don't know that that's the case, but maybe that's the case. Maybe you have a situation to where they have maybe Ole Miss's tradition is just 11 o'clock kickoffs. Maybe that's what it is in the view of the Southeastern Conference is the 11 o'clock kickoff is an Ole Miss thing. Maybe that's the reasoning behind it. But when you look at this schedule, when you look at this year of what could be for Ole Miss football, to not throw them a bone of a primetime game to where it's just a primetime game is disrespectful to Ole Miss football with what this season could be. They sold out of season tickets before June. They're unbelievably fired up about what could happen, and you don't throw them a bone. You don't feed into it. It's almost like this season is hazing to where it's like, okay, you're good, but you got to play these early games the first time you're good. You know, you got to handle it the way you did in 2022, where you open up against Kentucky at noon. You got to do that if you're going to be good, and you have to have staying power. If you can make it through all of this into next season and be good again, maybe you can get a night game. It's ridiculous. The Mississippi State game, everybody that hates on the Thanksgiving game, at least that was a primetime game. Every year, prime time. Like I said, the Georgia game is the only game that has a chance to be a primetime game, and it's not guaranteed. Like I said, I'm not counting Georgia Southern, Wake, or Furman. Those don't count. I want SEC games. I want big games. And in a situation where the TV contract, the biggest game is the ABC primetime game, there's 2 games on this schedule that has a chance to be that. You can automatically look at this schedule and say there's 2 games that Ole Miss has a chance to be in the primetime slot. The rest of them, it's in the also ran spots. It is. It just is what it is. And me as a journalist, yeah, I'm going to enjoy this because this means my Saturday's done at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. I can watch the primetime games. I can do all of that stuff. But you know what? I don't mind having 11 o'clock kickoffs, essentially, for our post-game show. I don't mind that at all. I enjoy the primetime games because the fans are really jacked up and they want them. But the way it's set up right now, I mean, there's going to be a lot of days that the Ole Miss Locked On Ole Miss post-game show is coming on at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I mean, we're just going to have to deal with that. Anyway, thanks again for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day. Now, we do our top 5s every single week, and no joke, Tre Harris has a chance to go up the list on both on the field and off the field. Did you know Game Time is your place to get NBA Finals tickets? They have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. You know, they have the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection. You know, you can take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all of that screaming and shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you each and every single day to bring you the biggest stories without all of that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Now, it's not all bad news. The first segment, we kind of ranted a little bit, but it's not all bad news at the moment. You have Tre Harris that is rocketing up the top 5 list as we speak right now. Tre Harris last season, this is what he did in like 9 games. 54 catches, nearly 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. If he'd have played the full 12, now, yes, I realize he played a little bit in the Alabama game. And yes, I realize that he got hurt after the first drive in the Tulane game. But he was probably looking at having somewhere around 70 catches, about 1,100 to 1,200 yards, and 8 to 12 touchdowns is what Tre Harris was looking for if he played a full season last year, which would have been good enough to have been a dude in the record book as it stands right now. When you look at the record book and see his stats, you're like, okay, he had a really good year, but we've seen a lot of other years like that before. But what you don't realize is he's about 9 games in to this season. So it's really interesting to think of what he could be moving forward. But Tre Harris is a good dude. This is what you need to know. He's from Lafayette, Louisiana, and he thought that if he made it big last year, he was going to give back to his community in this NIL age, and that is exactly what he is doing. This Lafayette native, Tre Harris, is having his inaugural football youth camp, and these are pictures from that opening camp. The Ole Miss star wide receiver wanted to give back to his community that has given so much to him, and he knew how to do this the best way he knew how was through football, so he had decided to have a football camp. This is from Megan Glover from a Lafayette news station. A really cool thing by Tre Harris. And you see his infectious smile, the way he's genuinely trying to give back to what's going on. This was a sponsored event. You can see the backdrop with the Tre Harris football camp and Raising Canes. This is a big deal. And all of those kids, I am pretty fired up that they got to go through this. And like I said, everything I hear about Tre is nothing but good news. He is just a unbelievably good guy if you listen to what's going on and what's said about him. So I'm very happy about that. Now, what does Tre Harris need to do this year? Okay. To take the next step, what does Tre Harris need to do? And I think Tre Harris has a chance to leave next season the all-time greatest receiver in Ole Miss history, above A.J. Brown, above DK Metcalf, all of that. I think that Tre Harris has a chance to be the dude. And the reason I think that is because of the auxiliary weapons that Ole Miss is going to have. Tre Harris is going to be the dude this year. Everybody knows that. The moment he steps on the field, every member of that defensive team is going to be finding out what he's doing and where he's lining up. But Tre Harris has an advantage that he has this year that he didn't necessarily have a year ago, and that is the players that are playing beside him. First of all, he has a quarterback that has a chance to leave Ole Miss the greatest of all time. If Ole Miss wins 11 games, hosts a playoff game, Jaxson Dart will be the Mount Rushmore #1 statue-level quarterback. But this is the biggest piece potentially for Tre Harris. Deion Smith coming to Ole Miss means that Tre Harris can't be double-teamed every play because Deion Smith will make you hurt. And I guarantee you Lane Kiffin, Kelvin Bolden, everybody that's in the Manning Center is excited for the addition of Deion Smith because of this reason. It's going to make Tre Harris better because he's going to see less double teams. If you go off of what last year's PFF numbers, the #1 wide receiver in the entire country going against single coverage was Tre Harris. You have to double team him to stop him. But if you double team him, Deion Smith will make you pay. But these aren't the only weapons that Ole Miss has. Ole Miss has Juice Wells coming in this season as well. And Juice Wells is a wide receiver that going into last season was arguably the #1 wide receiver in the entire league. He is transferred from South Carolina to Ole Miss. Mr. Reliable is still on the roster, and that is Jordan Watkins. He had 53 catches, 741 yards a year ago, 3 touchdowns. Anytime Ole Miss needed a big catch, it went in his directions more time than not because you're going to be double teaming Tre Harris. You're going to be making sure that the tight end can't get off the line. Jordan Watkins his ability to get open wasn't a massive, massive thing for Ole Miss a year ago. And speaking of Caden Prieskorn, he's on the roster as well. He's on the roster as well. Daquan Wright is on the roster as well. Aiden Williams as well. You look at what Ole Miss as a wide receiver weapons can be, and it only helps Tre Harris. Now, I know what you're going to say. With all of these weapons on the field, doesn't that mean that Tre Harris may not be as much of a factor as we're expecting? I don't believe so. I don't believe that that's going to happen because if you look at Lane Kiffin's background, when he had Marquise Lee at USC and Amari Thomas, I may have had his name wrong, at Alabama, those players got fed. Lane Kiffin is a very much feed your star player. So if you can use other players to make this player a little bit better, he's still your best player. And now he's going to get single coverage because of what's going on around him. Ole Miss has a situation similar to what Alabama had a couple of years ago with Mac Jones, with that wide receiver core, to where you couldn't necessarily focus on just one or they would tear you apart. And if you didn't focus on one, somebody else would tear you apart. That's what is pick your poison with this wide receiver unit. And when you look at the pass catchers that Ole Miss has gotten in the backfield, like even Ulysses Bentley IV and Rashad Amos and Logan Diggs and Henry Parrish Jr., you have pass catchers in the backfield as well. So you have 5 people that can go out into the route and not only that be a weapon, but be a threat. So that lets you know that Tre Harris has a chance to just skyrocket up the all-time charts this year and what he can be. I think this year has a chance to be an unbelievably special year for Tre Harris. And we'll see exactly how it goes. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that looks. Anyway, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen of the day. Chris Beard has finalized his roster. He's ready for a tournament run. We talk about that next. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on the Amazon Fire TV app and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every single league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Be part of history. Changing gears, Chris Beard has finalized his roster, and it is a good roster at that. If you look at this, you have 6 returners coming off of last year's team, and that being TJ Caldwell, Jamin Brakefield, Jalen Murray, Robert Coward, Matthew Morrell, and Cam Brent. Those are the players off of last year's 20-win team coming back. Now, this is important because 3 of the 4 best players are probably coming back off of last year's team. That's pretty good news. Now, if you look at this team, the newcomers that came in, that is pretty cool indeed. You have Sean Padula, who is coming from Virginia Tech. He averaged 16.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists. He played a lot of point guard a year ago. And he has pretty unlimited range, seemingly, on the basketball court, but he is going to open some stuff up in the backcourt and do a lot of the same stuff that Jalen Murray could do. But this year, he's going to be asked to play 2 guard more than that and to spell Sean Padula. So you have a little bit of depth at point guard as well. Now, Matthew Morrell coming back, that's obviously a returning player. Mr. 3-point shot, the best player on Ole Miss's basketball team, coming back. Now, you end Davin Bards, a transfer from Sam Houston State. He played in the Tad Pad game a year ago. He was basically unstoppable in that Tad Pad game. If you think about it, averaged 13.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, 1.6 assists. Then you have Dre Davis, who came from NIT champion Seton Hall, the Pirates, averaging 15 points per game, 5.9 rebounds, 1.6 assists. Now, it will be interesting to see how Chris Beard kind of sets this team up with everything that's going on, because you can play a little bit of positionless basketball right now. You look at Michael Brown Jones from, North Carolina, I think Wilmington maybe, averaged 18.9 points, 7.5 rebounds, 1.1 assists. And then you have Malik Dia from Belmont. He withdrew from the NBA draft, went back to school, averaged 16.9 points, 5.8 rebounds, 1.2 assists. Like I said, you can play a little bit of that positionless basketball with this unit. You have Sean Padula, who's about a 6'4" point guard. Matthew Morrell can play the 2. He's a guy that measured at the NBA Combine at 6'2" and a little bit over that, but he's listed at 6'4". You have Dre Davis, like that could be the starting lineup, and then it goes to like Malik Dia and Michael Brown Jones. Are they going to start over Jamin Brakefield? Is he that true stretch 4 player that Ole Miss basketball has been looking for? And will they be able to guard enough to be defensively as stout as Chris Beard teams are known for? Remember, this was a 20-win basketball team a year ago. Everybody remembers how the season ends and how it ended, but they don't really think that much about the good that went into last season. They won over 20 games. So I think 20 wins, returning the best players off of a 20-win team, should be kind of the baseline of what you expect. You don't have the holes in your game of Jamarian Sharp and Musa Cisse. You're going to get a little bit smaller. You're going to get a little bit more athletic. You're going to be able to play a little bit. You're going to be able to get away from the Alan Flanagan hot and cold weirdness that he seemingly went through last season. So we'll see exactly how this Ole Miss basketball team can perform. All right. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Now, just a little house cleaning a little bit. Most people watch 3 episodes a month of my podcast. So that is the reason I'm so repetitive on these shows. It is because the people that tune in just a little bit of the time, you can help them out as well. Next week, I'm going on vacation. I have a family vacation. My wife's family is going to be in town. We're going to be doing Disney and Legoland and all of that stuff. I have 3 Loom shows that I'm going to pre-record that's going to go out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday will be interviews. That should be, I think, Max Chadwick from PFF on Tuesday. On Thursday will be Brian Smith. On Saturday will be Michael Katz. And on Sunday will be or Brad Logan or something like that. I don't know. Brad Logan's on this Sunday. The next Sunday will be David Eckert or Michael Katz. So that is the plan. And then when I come back the next week, we'll be full go, along with setting up another week of essentially best of type shows. But we're trying to find new content that everybody might enjoy. You know how I am. I enjoy this so much. So we're going to try and find ways to do a little bit of work. But the top 5 list this week is the top 5 Ole Miss football head coaches of all time. And the way this is going to work, Thursday, I'm going to give my list. I'm not going to do it next week because that way I'm going to ask as many people as humanly possible and get those perspectives. So thank you for that. And thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We have the most perspective surrounding Ole Miss sports, and it's one of the many reasons why we are the number 1 podcast out there. And thank you for that. This week's top 5 topic is the top 5 Ole Miss football head coaches in history. But for your second listen, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every single league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available in the free Fire TV Channels app. And for those of you on YouTube, we will send you there right now. Hotty toddy, everyone.